Speaker is Professor Mamut from Black Universities Network in Romania.
Good morning again. So it is a great honor to participate to this session and to have this opportunity to, let's say, propose different ways of addressing the same issue, how smart or how a port could become smarter. So the Black Universities Network is a network of inter-university cooperation, so it has been established in 1998. At present, there are 120 universities from 12 countries that are cooperating under the frame of this network. And there are different activities that are developed, of course, in the partnership between the universities and different other partners, actors, and different other institutions. So the topic that I would like to draw your attention is the aspect that the port is smarter not only because has a specific infrastructure of information technologies and communication, not because is using different types of data, but is smarter for building something much beyond than just business. So from that perspective, I would like to draw your attention also to the cultural dimension of the ports and their activities. So why cultural dimension? Because it was always there. So for centuries, when we are talking about ports, we are talking about exchanges of values and about cooperation between people and communities. So from that perspective, we could say that being here in Greece, we have to mention the let's say, the legend of Golden Fleece, and at the same time, we have to mention that Argos and Argonauts is in our conscience as one of the very fundamental defining values of human beings, the fascination to explore and to discover. So, yes, of course, this fascination was not only present in this part of the world. There were many other parts where mankind did the same thing. But the Greeks, they have something very special. They named it. They used some, let's say, channels of communication over the centuries, the Iliada and Odyssey, and in this way it became a common value. So, and this is extremely important for this whole region. So at the same time, we have to mention also an important aspect. If we looked into this map, we could see the western part of Europe that is, from one side, very connected with different ports all around the shore of the Baltic, starting and Northern Sea and down to the Mediterranean. But also, there is a very important area of canals, of inland transport that had a very important contribution and had a very significant added value to, of course, economical development from one side, but also for binding and connecting and homogenizing, let's say, the cooperation between the communities. So looking into, let's say, the value of Danube and the southeast part of Europe, Of course, there were different histories, there were different types of evolutions, but we could also notice the lack of such an infrastructure of networking, let's say, communication aspects. Of course, another aspect that we have to put on the table when we are discussing about smart and smartness of ports is about the environment. So the Danube is one of the rivers that brings let's say, the huge catchment and drainage area, and all these pollutants are brought to the Black Sea. And of course, on the way towards Black Sea, all these pollutants coming from the northern part of Europe, the central part of Europe, and then southeast, all these pollutants are extremely, how can I say, influencing, pushing on the environmental aspects. So from that perspective, of course, from one side or with one eye, we are, let's say, searching for having more and more traffic. We'll have more and more cargo within and connected to these ports. But on the other side, we have to say, do we really need that cargo? Because the, let's say, intensification of transport means at the same time also a very significant impact on the environment, an environment that is extremely sensitive. So when we started this approach, so about 1 year ago, to aggregate a concept for, let's say, port cities in the Istro-Pontic space. Of course, we looked starting from, let's say, middle Danube, from the ports that are located along the Danube, and of course the ports along the western side of the Black Sea, just as a geographical approach, just as a, let's say, aspect of binding to some sort of a cultural, let's say, blanket. In reality, the Istro-Pontic space cannot be just limited towards east or towards west, and this is extremely important that this concept, we could say, that has a much, let's say, broader dimension. Of course, we have to look to the cultural dimension, and when we say cultural dimension, the first thing we move and look towards the museums, and we have identified along this space just some of the significant places that are well known for different type of records and artifacts that are, let's say, used in this area, but also the history of the region with the historical sites and different aspects. So all this approach is in the, let's say, an attempt to try to define a cultural route for, let's say, possible certification aspects and other types of connectivities. There are, of course, plenty of opportunities, and we are facing that also, starting from, let's say, the national points of view along this region, but also from European point of view. There is a very important attention to the Danube as a possible future corridor that could be like a backbone or a pillar for the coming decades in Europe, offering different types of pathways from logistical point of view, from transport point of view, but also, as I mentioned, from cultural point of view, for defining the future of Europe in the coming decades. Of course, there are many challenges just looking to the climate change aspect and to the predictions in the coming 50 to 100 years, what is going to happen with the shorelines along the Black Sea and Danube due to the climate change and the rise of water level. We could say that, of course, not tomorrow, but in the decades that will come, we shall see that the Danube Delta will look not the same. It will be step by step a saltmaster water area, an estuary. There are many other changes that will happen along the Danube Valley, and many of the ports of the region, they will have to redefine and to reinvent themselves. So it is a need for let's say, an evolution based on science, and to, let's say, aggregate the knowledge and to develop a very strong base for science evidence for preparing different types of decisions. So in the approach that we evaluated, of course, we looked into what kind of opportunities are from the perspective of, let's say, connectivity of the ports of this area. And we have seen that there are, of course, on paper, different aspects that could be extremely valuable, but all of them depends on the let's say, geopolitical evolutions. There are aspects like location. So, for instance, identifying the way in which Constanța port, but when I say Constanța port, I'm talking also to those ports that are connected via the Black Sea and the Danube. There are very important aspects regarding the location. There are aspects related to the infrastructure. For instance, the port of Constanța is an infrastructure that has been developed in almost 1 century of investments that has been done in this port, being developed as, let's say, state-of-art, let's say, infrastructure with all required facilities for accommodating any kind of cargo that might be connected to this. And the fundamental new aspect is the connectivity via this Black Sea Danube canal that offers a very important advantage to the port of Constanța. So just looking on the alternative analysis concerning the position of the port of Constanța comparing to, let's say, Varna, Piraeus, and Trieste, we could see that for all the other ports, we have to take into consideration 2 types of hinterland connectivities, by road and by rail. And the uniqueness of the Constanța port is that we are adding the connectivity via the Danube inland waterways, which is not only a very important way of transport, but also is the lowest carbon footprint logistical connectivity. So the other aspect that we wanted to draw the attention is the connectivity between the city and the port. We recently closed a project for sustainability of port cities around Europe, and we have identified the pathways for implementing different type of concepts on how to aggregate the interest of the community on one side, on the other side of the port, and at the same time to identify different options for let's say, greening the port, to reduce the impact on the environment, to promote renewable energy like wind and solar, and how these kind of dimensions of the port could have an important added value in the future development of the value chains. So we have to come back to the fundamental aspects. What makes a port smart, as the previous speaker was raising. So we have to look to the wisdom coming from the ancient Greeks. Panta rei. So what means that a port is smart? Is smart if allows to flow properly the cargoes and different type of commodities via those ports without harming them and facilitating the best possible, let's say, flow and the best possible connectivities around. So based on that, in 1996, Professor Adrian Bejan, who was born in Galați in Romania, but he's a professor at Duke University, demonstrated that this might be a fundamental principle of evolution of systems, and particularly it may be applied in transport and logistics. Of course, for this we need digital infrastructures, and here we have also the solution of bringing together different types of systems and aggregating them into a large integrated platform, facilitating the one-point access for end users and to connect with different other sources and data. Of course, we need to promote, and we are implementing different projects for modeling aspects, but more and more it is fundamental to promote the ecosystem service approach and to find out up to where the ports can evolve in compliance with the adaptability of the surrounding ecosystems in that. So from that perspective, the next period is like that. For this reason, we defined a very important project that we are implementing together with a large number of actors, is the Dobroja Blue Bay Living Laboratory, centered on the Danube Black Sea Canal, where we are bringing not only the ports and the, let's say, operators around this, but we are bringing also the local communities around this and to develop this in an integrated approach. So there are many strategic projects. We could discuss about all of them. So these are related to circular economy, to different aspects. We are, let's say, identifying important aspects on hydrogen technology. Just some of them are connected with renewables, but particularly for the Port of Constanța, due to the evaluation that we made, it is also very important the possibility of a terminal for bringing hydrogen from renewables from different other parts of the world in this area. And of course, we can discuss a lot, but I would like to thank you, and I don't want to make nervous look up or extending using too much of this time. Thank you for your attention.